All right. Three, two, one. We're back at it here on the Alaska Sports Talk podcast as we dive into the heart of athletics here in the last frontier. Keaton Homer, Isaiah Vreeman. So glad to have you along wherever you get your podcast, whether that's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, our fantastic website as well, alaskasportstalk.com.
Did you
Oh.
use the dive in on purpose? Dive,
Uh,
dive in?
no, I did not, but I
Yeah,
I
there's been a
guess I
lot of talk this week.
A lot of dive in. Yeah, yeah. A lot of just jump right in off the deep end here. You know,
Yeah,
you never know. Hey,
you
speaking of
don't.
that, look, the Alaska Sports Talk right there,
Oh, yeah, look at
Yeah,
that.
see? Oh, you can't see it on the watch. It's an update. Or not an update, but a little thing came in about the podcast from a previous episode. So you can
Nice.
get updates like that through like your smart
You can.
devices.
You can. And you
Like,
should be if you haven't signed up, you haven't liked and subscribed to the YouTube page and through Spotify, Apple, whatever podcast platform you like, you're missing out. You need to get those updates.
yeah, for sure. There's a lot of good updates that come across every once in a while. I'll just be like in the middle of the day. Oh, it's 3:05, and a little thing comes across. Bloop. Oh, I forgot we talked about that like on the show last week. You're like, hey, I'm going to click on that and watch.
Oh, yeah,
What I
that's
say?
right.
Does it
What
sound dumb? Is
did I
it
say
like,
something interesting?
yeah, yeah, why does this video have 10,000 views? What did I do? I'm used to 10 views. Like, what the heck? No. Like, what happened here? So,
What's going on?
why are people tuning in anyway? I know why you're tuning in. Obviously, we're here to talk about sports, and
Yeah.
we're in one of the biggest throes of the season right now in terms of high school sports, also college sports. Last week we had the Division II state hockey championships
Hmm.
down on the peninsula, so we'll recap a little bit of that. This week, another state championship coming up, the D1 hockey championships being held out at the Menard Sports Complex out in Wasilla. So we'll kind of preview those matchup as well. Talk a little high school hoops because that season is slow. Well, I say slowly. It is rapidly
It's
coming to an end in terms of the regular season. And then right before we know it, the postseason. March Madness Alaska will be here.
do you remember the last time we were talking about March Madness? You said we were talking about the countdown clock and all that.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, I
yeah.
do have it on the Alaska Sports Talk website now.
Oh, do you?
I
All
do.
right.
It's right on the homepage. Countdown to March Madness Alaska. Yeah,
Oh,
it's right there. It's a
okay.
it's a haunting reminder.
It's a haunting reminder.
It's a good reminder.
Oh,
I
okay.
really enjoy it, but it's also very haunting.
Uh, come on. It's loading. It's thinking. Oh,
It's
there it
thinking.
is. 28 days, 1 hour, 45 minutes. All right. I like it. There you go.
Yep.
So
8 a.m., March 12th.
8 a.m. 8 a.m.
Tip
Don't
off.
forget, prior to that, the selection show, March 9th,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
So
We'll
if
talk
you
more
haven't,
about that for sure. Don't want to miss
yeah,
that.
it's exciting time revealing the brackets, teams that made it in, teams that just missed it. So we will have the selection show coming up here in a couple of weeks. So that'll be an exciting time for sure. And Isaiah, you were down to the peninsula last week,
Yeah,
D2 hockey. I mean, some fantastic games. The Palmer
was.
Moose taking home the Division II hockey title this year over the Soldotna Stars. It was the Stars who were the number 1 seed, Palmer the number 2 seed, and the Moose coming away with this year's state title. I don't know the last time Palmer won a state title in hockey. Um,
Boy, it's I'm trying to think. I don't think they haven't won it
I
for state yet. I don't
I
think.
mean
Not
they
for
have played. Yeah,
Division 2.
they played in the 2022 state championship against Houston. They lost
Right,
4-2.
right.
They played in the third place game um, in 2023. Lost to Houston again. Played in the third place game again last year. Won against Kenai,
Yep.
and then winning the state title this year. So yeah, I don't know since they made the move to D2
They
if
haven't
they.
won, they have not
Yeah,
won it. Not that I can see or that you can see.
I would think this might be their first.
I believe this is their first because division, when it was all just one division, I know they made the state tournament a few times, but I mean, not since I've been around have they won the Division One or when it was just one
Yeah.
division. So this might be
Okay.
their first hockey state championship, and they were an impressive group for sure.
No, they looked impressive. I mean, they put up a lot of goals in the span of 3 games, and
20, 24 goals
yeah,
in three
uh,
games.
opening round win 10-1 over Tri Valley, 5-2 victory over Juneau, and then a 9-1 victory over Soldotna. Now the 9-1 score, maybe a little bit misleading in terms of like, whoa, that's a huge blowout. Now Palmer was winning that game 4-1, and Isaiah, you were telling me before, there was that 5-minute major
Yep,
uh, that really opened up the doors against Soldotna. That when you have that long of an advantage on the ice, you're bound to take advantage of it. Hopefully, and they did. And they added
they did.
a handful more goals there to win 9-1. But impressive. We talked 2 weeks ago when the bracket came out that there was some uproar in terms of the seeding and why teams were seeded there and that nature. But I think things shook itself out. It seems like it always the way it always seems to do.
Yeah, eventually it shakes it out. You still got to win three games,
Right.
and
Yeah.
do the first opening round game matter? Obviously, of course it does, and who you're
Oh,
matched up
totally.
with and all those kind of things. Like, I mean, any bracket would be. I mean, that's obvious, but you still got to win the three games. Some people have the idea that, well, I'd rather have the toughest game out of the way first, you know, the
Yeah.
way you're not worried about being tired, you're coming off, you're fresh, all that kind of stuff. Do I
Yeah.
particularly prescribe to that? Not necessarily. I think it kind of depends on the sport and your team, but
Right. Right.
Palmer was on a mission, and they played like it. They were a dominant force. They really were. The semifinal games were a lot of fun. Soldotna hosting Soldotna Kenai was that was the highest attended Division two game we've had. That was a
Wow.
pretty packed house. It was. Some of the other games not as packed, but that being said, that game really was pretty full, which was pretty exciting. And then obviously, third place you have Kenai versus Juneau. That was a pretty back and forth game. It seemed it really did seem anytime somebody scored a goal, not a minute later it seemed like the other team scored to make it even.
Right.
It was
Yeah.
really back and forth there for a while, and then Juneau got that kind of that breathing room goal late in the third and ended up taking it 3-5 and for third place. But it was an exciting tournament. Really enjoyed the time down there. Soldotna does a great job hosting that event. It's not going to be down there next year. I believe it's at Palmer next year at the MTA Center. So just a huge shout out to Soldotna. They did a great job hosting. Very nice job.
So congratulations to the Palmer Moose winning the Division Two State Hockey Championship in what we believe and what we can see as far back as history, their first high school hockey state championship. Now, if you're listening to the podcast and you're like, Keaton Homer, you're an idiot, and Palmer won a hockey championship in 93 or whatever it is, let us know, please.
Yeah,
This is the
let us
kind of
know.
stuff that we want to know. Like, the crazy thing about high school sports, and once I started getting into high school sports here in Alaska, especially when I'm freshman year of college and started broadcasting, all that kind of stuff, the record books are so scattered.
They are
And
so scattered.
like trying to dig and find records for, you know, all these sports, there's not like one central spot to find all this information, right? Uh, Shout out to Don Winchester because he does a great
Yep.
job of keeping track of many of them, right?
Yep. Yep.
Especially
Absolutely.
the major ones.
Right.
But I feel like hockey gets lost in the shuffle um, in terms of record books. Basketball to an extent. I mean, 3A and 4A, pretty good record keeping, but the 1A and 2A, the smaller schools and divisions, like trying to find, history and things of that kind of nature of when they won state titles and what years and that kind of thing. It's like, oh, I don't even know where to start sometimes. So if you're one of
Yeah,
those people
you're
that has
right.
that kind of information, send it to us. Let
Yes,
us know.
please. Well, and we at ASAA, we try to have some of that information, but
Right,
again,
right.
we can only go back so far. I mean, it's funny, I get, emails or phone calls or something. Hey, do you have a video from 1983's basketball state championship? And I have to say, I don't, because
Right.
we just
Yeah.
don't. I mean, we just don't have that stuff. But shout out to Donnie. He does a pretty good job with basketball and baseball and football to a certain
Football,
extent
right.
with some of those records. But even that, I mean, he can only do so much.
Right.
He doesn't
No.
have the full record of all what the teams did back in 1983.
Well,
We know who won the state championship, but that's about it. I
right.
mean,
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And the other thing is, I mean, trying to find ASAA, like you mentioned, I mean, that is like probably the one source, that you could kind of go to ASAA, .org and find all that information. But again, it only goes back so far. Like
yep,
it's just some
yep.
of those sports, like even what was I looking like the football state championships one? You're like, I don't think it goes past sometime in the '90s or something like that.
Well, probably.
But anyway, neither here nor there. So if like you're listening to this podcast and you're like, no, Palmer has won a state hockey title before. I want to know that information. I want to know.
Yeah.
So let us know and get a hold of us. A lot of people have been writing into the show. I say writing into the show. Like they've been going to the website, leaving us comments and things, and
Yeah.
they've been good to hear.
It's been great.
Good information. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So anyway, again, congratulations to Palmer Moose on their state title this year in 2025, winning the Division II state hockey championship. So one hockey championship in the books, another one coming up this weekend. This one
Hmm.
being held out at Wasilla, the D1 state hockey championships. Bracket came out this past weekend. And I know there's a lot of people around who probably look at this bracket and they're like, what in the world? So um, I think maybe the biggest thing that people are upset about is maybe the matchups, I guess. I don't know if necessarily, I mean, seeding, yes, but I think more so there's a lot of interconference matchups, obviously. And that's hard to maybe avoid
Like,
in this scenario in D1.
well, like I was telling some people, when you have 11 teams in Division One
Right.
and 8 make the state championship, I mean, you're
Yeah.
bound to have I mean,
It's going to, no, right.
that's gonna happen.
Well, I mean, yeah.
And
Yeah.
unfortunately, I mean, the way the seating worked, it's the same thing we talked about. I'm not going to rehash all that like we did in last week's podcast with Division Two. It's the same exact seating system for picking the at large, and then run that same criteria for all 8 that are in the state championship. It's
Right.
the same. It's the same exact thing, and it all worked out head to head and all those things. And that's the way the seeding worked. I know some people are like, well, this team beat this team, so they can't possibly be seated ahead. Well, in one game, yeah, you're right. They did win that game, but it's not just about that one game. It's about the whole season. And
Right.
that's where sometimes, again, recency bias, I get it. But yeah, definitely when I was putting the bracket together, I'm like, oh yeah, this is gonna be fun. This is gonna be interesting.
There, in the opening round, we'll give you the opening round matchups. There is only one matchup that is two teams from a different conference.
Yep.
Um, and that's the West Valley Diamond matchup, the 11 a.m. game this Thursday. Every other the other three games are all conference opponents. Wasilla and Colony at 6:30. That's the nightcap. Wasilla, the 3 seed, Colony, the 6 seed. Chugiak and South, the 4-5 matchup. That game at 4 o'clock, and then the matchup 1-8 matchup West Anchorage and the Eagle River Wolves. So, you know, seeding might be a little bit of a controversy. To me, seeding is not a controversy in this retrospect. I dislike, and I get how the seeds shook out. I in the
Yeah.
playoffs and any postseason, I want to avoid like conference matchups, right? You guys
Correct.
have played
Yeah.
2 times, maybe even possibly maybe 3 to 4 times, depending on if you were in a tournament somewhere,
Mhm.
right? So it stinks. And I get it. And I get where you're at. Like you said, you have 11 teams, and this is the way that the seeding shook out. I'm almost of a fan, almost like the NBA lottery. All right. You made the playoffs, get rid of the seeds. All right. Get rid of them.
Get them, draw them out of a hat.
Boom. Ping pong ball. Here you go.
Ping pong ball.
No, here's seriously. Like, so
Wow.
the NBA
Yeah.
lottery, I'm dead serious. I think this is a good idea,
I
right? So let's say
I'm
you
for
let's
it.
say you are the number one seed, right? Let's put this in air quotes. All right, you're West. You're the number one seed. Okay. So, all right, you get the most ping pong balls into the chute, right? Okay. You're deserving of the number one seed. We're drawing for the number one seed. All right. We reach in there. Oh, we didn't get West. We got, I don't know, somebody else. We got Colony, right? Oh, Colony, you get the number one seed. Oh, wow. I mean, to me, I think it'd be awesome because the like to live stream that I think would be pretty cool.
Oh,
Like
there'd be a lot there. That would
from a
be
lot of,
very interesting. But
I think it would create chaos and be fun.
all the complaints and emails that
I don't.
I was getting,
I'll,
the
I'll take them
going to
all.
direct them right to
I'll
you.
take them all.
Here's one thing that some people will say, because in previous years, I'm not going to go crazy history wise, but when I first started at ASAA, when it was the WPI,
You're right.
if there was a certain point spread, a .01 difference in the WPI, the ASAA staff, myself, as the person who was running basketball, had the authority that I could flip a seed to avoid only conference matchups in the first round. That is the only reason I was able to do it.
Interesting.
Now, we didn't do it all the time. We did it a couple times, very rarely. But this is the argument that you get. And this is where I always find seeding and everything so funny is, and this happens with, I'm not just picking on wrestling. It happens with wrestling, hockey, basketball. It doesn't matter what sport it is, soccer, everything. I will have a coach be adamant, standing on the table, screaming and yelling that this is the way that it should be, blah, 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 that we need to be doing it this way. That same thing happens the next year, and they are standing on the table screaming the exact opposite thing. I'm not exaggerating. I've seen it happen hundreds of times in 15 years.
Hey, yes.
And my thing would be is if you did something like that, and where I can kind of go with it a little bit is, okay, West, you're the number one seed. You have this amazing record. Okay, well, we don't want you to play Eagle River. Now, let's say that the 7 seed was West Valley. Okay. Well, West Valley, we're going to switch you to the 8 seed so that you're not playing a conference opponent. You're not playing Diamond, let's say. You're going to play West. And now Eagle River, you're going to play Diamond because the 1 seed shouldn't have that. Well, then Diamond is going to be up in arms like, well, we were the 2 seed. We had a whole year and we fought for that 2 seed. We should have the number 7, not the 6 or something like that,
Yeah.
which I can understand. I get all that, but it all goes back to when you only have 11 teams. And and talking with some individuals, I understand why the Rail Belt Conference does not do a conference tournament anymore for hockey.
Right.
What's the point?
No,
You don't have
I agree.
and I think the Cook Inlet Conference, now it's definitely different than in years past now to do this, but don't have a conference tournament. You have, I mean, in reality, most of the time, the Cook Inlet Conference will have 5 teams.
Right.
They'll have 5. They have a minimum of 4, but the 2 at-larges, they generally get 5. I would say get rid of the at-larges. If I was the czar of hockey, get rid of the at-larges. CIC gets 5, and Rail Bell gets 3. I mean,
Yeah.
and that's it. Get rid of the at-larges, and then you could go back to a conference rotation if you really wanted to, because there's not very many
Well,
teams. You can go back and forth. You could do a conference rotation.
okay, and then let's throw this scenario out there. Is Division 1 hockey even worthy of 2 conferences? Why is it not
I
one?
I
I
don't
mean,
disagree with some of that. It's the same.
I
It's the same argument that we were going with through with soccer, and
yeah,
soccer got kind of not blown up, but got definitely a wrench thrown into it when Thunder Mountain closed and Juneau then all of a sudden became a Division I school for soccer because everything was
right.
worked out. And then it kind of got blown up with that happening, and it was 13
Yeah.
teams instead of 12, those kind of things. So what's the right answer?
I ping pong
I don't,
balls.
I don't, ping pong balls. I say the next board meeting in February, we bring it up. Ping pong balls. We live stream it. We'll have lots of views. It could be
You
very
can't complain.
entertaining.
Okay, I'm
Well,
telling
you
you.
can complain,
You
but
can, but I mean, you have a chance. So here's the
yeah,
thing, right?
I'm with you.
Statistically, like if you're West, you get the most ping pong balls in there for the number one seed, right? You did great. Awesome. Okay. Cool. All right. Statistically, you should get the number one seed. But stuff happens,
Yep,
right?
stuff
Oh,
happens.
look at this. Oh, wow. Somehow,
Oh, look, Eagle River is the number
yeah.
one seed.
You never know,
Hey, you
right?
never know what happened. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. And like you mentioned earlier, you got to win three games no matter what.
Yep, you
At
do.
some point in time, you got to win three games. Does not
Hmm.
matter. Does not who. I mean, yes, should you be rewarded in some way, shape, or fashion for having a terrific regular season? Yes.
Yep.
And to your point, maybe right now getting rid of a CIC tournament could be an option because uh, you win the regular season, you go into that tournament, and you lose in the opening round, right? Or the second round of that tournament. And I think a lot of people see that as like, ooh, well, like, should you really have been that good or ranked that well? I don't know. But
Yep. No,
I think it backfires.
you're
So,
100% right.
yeah. But anyway, all right. Moving on just a little bit. D1 hockey this weekend out of the Menard Sports Complex out in Wasilla. Four games on Thursday, four more on Friday, and then three on the championship Saturday. All the games are going to be streamed on the NFHS network. I will be out there on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday having the call for a couple of those games each day. So looking forward to it. It's going to be an exciting, fun time. West trying to go back to back.
Hmm.
State champions a year ago. They beat Diamond in the state championship game 3-2. So trying to stay atop of high school hockey here in the state of Alaska. They will open up their title defense against Eagle River. Again, Chugach and South in the 4-5 matchup. That game's at 4 o'clock. West Valley and Diamond, the 2-7 matchup. West Valley, the 2 seed. Diamond, the 7 seed. Wasilla and Colony. Wasilla, the 3 seed, and Colony, the 6 seed. Rounding out the quarterfinal action in Division One state hockey. Can they get their tickets early, Isaiah? Can you buy
Yeah,
them online?
absolutely. Actually, if you look at the bracket, there's a QR code for the GoFan
Yes.
box office that you can just scan and go right there. Or you can go to ASAA365.com and there's links on there to get tickets, but also links to uh, sign up for the NFHS network so you can watch games if you can't be there right away, those kind of things. So yeah, it's all over there. But I would highly encourage getting tickets early. It's a little easier to get people through, especially on those semifinals and championship nights for sure.
Definitely. Definitely. All right. So kind of puts a little bit of a bow on uh, state hockey a little bit. Obviously, we'll recap and have a lot more in-depth stuff in terms of D1 hockey as the week goes on, and kind of recapping the games and matchups in next week's podcast. But should make mention a little bit of high school hoops. I know last week we mentioned, some victories and milestones. Ryan McCarthy winning his 300th game. Jeannie Hebert Truax winning her 600th game. Also, last week, Chuck Martin, friend of the podcast, by the way.
Friend of the pod for
Friend of
sure.
the pod. Friend of the pod, Chuck Martin, the boys basketball head coach at Betty Davis East Anchorage High School, picking up his 500 win in his high school career, a career that has spanned, I think, 5 different high schools. Let's see, Houston, Colony, Palmer.
Yeah.
I think he coached at Wasilla.
Yep,
I
he did.
think, yeah,
Yep.
and then East. So 5 different high schools, and he's picked up 500 wins in his illustrious career, a career that started back in 1987. here in the state of Alaska out at Houston High School. So congratulations to Chuck Martin. Now, the game that he picked his 500th win up in, it was a close one.
It was a
I was
nail biter.
shocked. I was shocked. It was a 43-41 win over West. Now, or not West, excuse me, West Valley. And, I guess shocked might be the wrong word, but I was like, ooh, okay. Because I was seeing, like, they were up by 8 or 9 points or something at
Hmm.
one point in the fourth quarter. I'm like, okay, all right. So kind of got this on lock, I guess. They'll salt it away. And, here I am, a fool. Oh, high school sports. Never know what's going to
You
happen,
never
right?
know.
And look, it's a little closer now. It's 43-41. But so East staying undefeated in teams that they play here in the state of Alaska. I'm trying to remember how many victories in a row that is now for teams they've beaten in
It's,
Alaska.
it's got to be close to 50, if not more.
I'm trying to see here.
I mean, it's an awful lot. Stats and
Yeah,
research.
yeah, I know, right? That's what I'm trying to find here. It's been a while. I know that, but
I think the last
as
opponent they lost to was for Alaska. An Alaskan opponent was the
what was
East
that
South
it?
Championship. I'm pretty sure that was
2
the
years
last
ago?
one. Yeah.
Okay, I think you might be right.
I think that's the last. Yeah, it would be because they had an undefeated season
Right.
last year
Yeah.
for Alaskan opponents.
Right.
And then so
And the
far
only
this
time
year.
the only time they've lost is to out-of-state opponents when they've played in the
Correct.
Alaska Airlines Classic.
Yep.
So, other than that, they have beat every in-state opponent that they have faced. This one was a nail biter. They've had a few
They
kind of
have.
close games this year
They have.
over the last couple of weeks, and even I think Coach Martin and the Alaska Sports Report article that was written about him by Van Williams. Great piece, by the way. If you go over to alaskasportsreport.com, Van Williams, our friend over there, great article on the 500 victory for Chuck Martin. But and Chuck mentions that, like, right now, I didn't even realize that I was even anywhere close to 500 victories. I'm just focused on trying to get our team to play better, right? So I think he senses like, man, all right,
He
this has
does.
been a little bit of a grinder, more so than maybe the last couple of years has been, and you know, teams catching up a little bit. So we'll see
Yeah,
what
for
happens
sure.
as we get in the last couple of weeks of the regular season and then in the postseason, and see what shakes out to see if East can win another state championship. So it'll be interesting. By the way,
Well,
Stats and Research did hand me something
oh, they did. Oh,
earlier
that's
in the
good.
show.
Oh,
They were
nice.
giving me a score update because there's a whole bunch of CIC games going on tonight, I guess.
There are, yeah.
And Chugiak boys were beating West at half. So
Really?
yeah,
And
right.
didn't they just beat Diamond?
I don't not just beat,
I saw that score and I'm like, wait,
not just beat.
is
Okay,
that right?
I was shocked by the margin. All right, 70-58, I think it was,
Yeah,
and I was
ditto.
like,
I'm like, wait a second.
um, okay, I don't know where that one came from, but
Like, excuse
I
me?
was like, all right, so Diamond is the number 2 team in terms of standings in the Cook Inlet Conference right
Yeah.
now, behind East. Chugiak, that was, I think, their second conference victory of the year. And I was like, oh, okay. And now they're beating, at last check, West at the half. That was, about 10 minutes ago, 30-27. So the second half, I'm sure, is underway. But I'm like, oh, okay. Well,
Wow.
Chugiak boys, Brandon Gall getting them going out there
Yeah,
a
no
little bit.
lie.
All right. So um, I don't know if we'll get a final prior to the end of the podcast, but uh, lots of other games going on across the Cook Inlet Conference too. I
There
think
are.
tonight. Pull up the
I'm pretty sure it's a conference night.
yeah, Eagle River and Service, East and Bartlett going at it as well. Mentioned West and Chugiak, Diamond and South uh, tonight as well. Colony Palmer, North Pole and Monroe, and
Oh,
Lathrop and West Valley
it's
as
a full
well.
slate tonight.
Yeah. So a lot of exciting games going on tonight. And
Lots of
uh,
RPI, lots of RPI ramifications in the games this week or this tonight.
yep,
For
yep.
sure.
definitely. And there's only 2 more weeks in the regular season, so we're
Is
getting
it now
to
2 weeks?
well, what are we
Is it
at?
two?
12?
We're at,
The 11th tonight, but
well, it's
uh,
1, 2. It's 3 weeks till conference tournament. Yeah, so basically the rest of this week and then the next 2 weeks.
yeah,
So 2.5 weeks. Oh my gosh. So many
it's
things to
here.
do.
So many things to do, so little time to do
So
it.
many things to do.
Crazy.
Boy, and you look at the some of the RPI. I don't if you don't know what we're talking about or you do, I would encourage you to take a look at the ASAA RPI for 3A and 4A boys and girls on ASAA365.com, the RPI page. There is some really, really close RPI.
Yeah,
I mean, really close. For instance, Grace girls are number one, but they're 0.002 ahead of Monroe. Grace Christian's opponent's winning percentage is 60%, which is a huge number.
right.
They're 8-4. They've played some of the 4A powerhouses. Monroe 12-2, Barrow 10-3. Galena, we haven't seen Galena girls or boys for that matter in a long time. They're fourth in the RPI right now, the record of 3-3.
Man,
Kenai
I want to.
Kotzebue. Yeah, it's shaping up. Nome definitely. Nome for the boys is doing really well. They're undefeated right now. Um, Sitka is rounding out the second. Mount Edgecombe
Yeah,
third. Barrow fourth. Houston fifth. The one that's really interesting to me, and I didn't realize this until today when I was looking at it, but in the 4A girls, Mountain City Christian Academy is the number one ranked RPI team.
really.
They are. They're 12-2. Their opponent's winning percentage is 70. That's incredible. Wasilla, they're undefeated 15-0. Their opponent's winning percentage is 54 or 55%, which is definitely big. Colony 12-2. I mean, you look at the
So,
top
but
five teams in the 4A girls classification for RPI, their opponent's winning percentage is incredibly high, and
yeah,
their records are pretty good too. So it is really, really close with those especially the top two. Wasilla and Mountain City are 0.004 away from each other
right.
in the RPI. I mean, that's really close. That's going to really come down to the wire. A conference tournament, all that stuff will shake out. I mean, they're all going to have to play each other at some point. But the Northern Lights Conference, number 1, 2, and 3, just like
Yeah.
last year.
Well, emphasize a point here. The numbers that you're mentioning, those are not the standings, right? I mean,
Correct.
the RPI is a little bit
These,
different than
no, good,
yeah,
good. I'm glad you mentioned that. These are not the standings of the individual conferences. That's correct.
correct.
This is just more of what it looks like for state seeding as well as what the RPI is for these teams. Because for 4A, there's two at larges. So, for
Right.
instance, that was a big deal for 4A girls because you had three teams that were the best in the state, and only two of them were going to get automatic qualifier positions.
Right.
So, and that's
Right.
kind of the way it looks like it's shaken out right now, too, for 4A girls. And then 4A boys, Grace is number one in the RPI, and East is second. Again,
Interesting.
0.007 away. I mean, we're
Interesting.
thousandths of a point. I mean, hundredths of a point away. I mean, it's
Yeah.
pretty, really, really close.
I always wondered how often like coaches look at that prior to
I
um
don't know. That's a good question. I mean, it
I should
doesn't.
ask because I guarantee you, like I feel like Chuck Martin,
No,
like
Chuck isn't looking at that.
I don't care. He's like, whatever,
No,
wherever
he's
we're
not
at.
looking at that.
Yeah. I'm just trying to get past, whoever tonight. Yeah, whatever.
I
But I
think
bet
there.
I guarantee there's probably coaches out there that do
Oh,
on a weekly basis. I'm sure, like, wait a minute,
I'm
okay,
sure
let
they
me
do.
doing the math here.
I'm sure
Like,
they do. But at the same time, the funny thing would be is if they're really focused on it and that's all they're thinking about, there's really nothing you can do about it. It's you just have to win your games. I mean, that's really.
right.
I mean, you can't. Okay, those
And hope
numbers,
that
and
your
hope that your
opponents,
opponents do really well. I mean,
right,
really, that's. I mean that. I mean
beat your
that's
opponents and then say, hey, can you go do me a favor and beat the other guy next
Yeah,
week? All right. And yeah, just keep winning. That'd be
just
great. Yeah.
just keep winning. Go team.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
go when you know play us. I mean, there's not it all boils down to winning.
Right.
And, it's not margin of victories or anything like that. That's not a part of the calculations, but you know, all you got to do is win by one.
That's it.
So
That's all it takes. One more point at the end of the game. That's it.
wouldn't
That's
surprise
it.
me if the majority of the coaches for 3A 4A have kind of glanced at it in the last week, maybe.
Sure.
Uh, but not Chuck. I doubt Chuck has looked at it or Jeannie. I don't I don't think they're looking at it. But
Never
yeah,
know.
it's
Never know. Good.
it's definitely going to be very interesting coming down the stretch. There's going to
No,
be
we'll
some
be
movement. There's definitely going to be some movement.
definitely going to be movement. Of course. Last 2 weeks, it seems like there's always, especially in the really tight, like you can start getting 2, 3, 4 spots.
Hmm.
There always seems to be some, leapfrogging and maybe going back or forth between a couple, three teams in the final couple of weeks. So it'll be interesting to keep an eye on down the stretch of the regular season and on into the month of March. So we'll be keeping our eye on high school basketball really, really close over the next couple of weeks. That's for sure. Moving on up to college basketball, UAA athletics and the Seawolf men's and women's basketball teams. They are on the road this week. The men, kind of recap last week for the Seawolf men's basketball teams. They went to Central Washington and Northwest Nazarene, and the guys are shorthanded right now. They're banged up.
Sounds like
They,
it.
they lost to Central Washington, number one team of the GNAC in men's basketball, 76-66. And then they had, I think, 8 active against Northwest Nazarene. Actually, I think they had 9. They had 9 guys active for that road trip against Northwest Nazarene. They lost 72-51. They could just not, they just couldn't buy a bucket in that game. The Seawolf men's team against Northwest Nazarene, they shot 35%. They made 6 field goals in the first half. Like it was tough to watch.
Oof.
So it just did not shoot the basketball well against Northwest Nazarene. Seawolves now, by the way, in terms of record, the men's basketball team, they are now overall 11-15. They're 4-9 in conference play. They are definitely on the outside looking in terms of trying to get a top 6 spot. Remember, there's only a handful of games left here in the regular season. The men's team is on the road up at UAF this week. So, Seawolf men's team, they have 5 games remaining on the schedule. At UAF, their final 2 home games against Montana State Billings and Seattle Pacific. Then they finish up on the road at Western Oregon and at St. Martin's. Can they still get a top 6 position? Yes, they have the ability to do that. All right. But as of right now, they're 2.5, I think actually 3 games out of trying to get a top 6 spot in the GNAC. So they have their work cut out for them, right? And they need a little bit of help along the way. But it starts with winning games here down the stretch. Got to definitely, just in terms of opponents, UAF, Montana State Billings, Seattle Pacific, Western Oregon, St. Martin's, they need to win a minimum of 4 out of the next 5.
Yeah, yeah.
4 out of the next 5 to give themselves a chance, and then need a little bit of help in there as well. So it's going to be a tall task. Seawolves without Sean Evans for the rest of the year, one of their leading scorers. They were without John McFadden. Didn't even make the road trip down. One of their key contributors coming off the bench. Oh man, and they've been out without. They were without somebody else as well for that road trip. But man, just brutal injuries over the last couple of weeks for the men's basketball team as they've been trying to navigate their way through a very tough GNAC. On the other hand, UA women's basketball team, they've been getting a little bit healthier. They're rolling 20-3 overall, ranked number 20 in the nation, 11-1 in the GNAC. They're at the top of the conference. And by virtue of Simon Fraser losing last week, they've actually already locked up a spot in the conference tournament. Like, not necessarily the 1 seed,
But they're in.
but they're in. Like
They're in.
Not saying that, weird things couldn't happen, but if a fluke happened and, they didn't win a game the rest of the year during the regular season, they're already in the conference tournament. But they still have things that they want to achieve, obviously, and aspirations of not just getting into the conference tournament, but winning the regular season and the GNAC as well. They're on the road this weekend against Western Washington and Simon Fraser. Then UAA back at home against Montana State, Billings, Seattle Pacific, and just like the men, on the road to finish up the regular season against Western Oregon and St. Martin's. But the women's basketball team, they have won 3 in a row now after a 93-50 victory over UAF this past Saturday. So the women's basketball team, they got a couple of players back over the last couple of weeks and starting to get a little bit more healthy. Mainly one of their key contributors in the interior of that offense, Tori Hollingshead, coming back off of a concussion she suffered against Seattle Pacific, a couple of weeks ago now, and getting her healthy. They got Hedda Kune back healthy. So Seawolves getting healthy at the right time, looking to stay that way going down to the
It's
stretch
good.
of the season. So women's basketball team in a good spot right now. So very tough road trip, though, at Western Washington and at Simon Fraser. That is probably, in terms of GNAC road trips, the Western Washington Simon Fraser road trip is probably the toughest, in my opinion. I don't care what the records are. It's just something about going to Bellingham and then going to Burnaby, British Columbia, right? It's just, I don't know.
It's
I don't know
different.
why. It's different. And man, I got a weird travel story. How much time do we got? Do we have time?
We got enough time for a weird travel story.
Okay. So I'm broadcasting UA basketball, okay? And we're trying to, I'm kind of on my separate own, doing my thing, rental car, whatever, teams traveling, getting across the border. We're driving across the border into Canada, okay? It takes probably a couple hours to get from Bellingham to the campus over at Simon Fraser. Augie Pantovich is playing for UAA. He is a oh man, where was Augie from? He is from, what was it? Hold on, I don't want to get this wrong. Um, I gotta get it right. I gotta get it.
Overseas somewhere,
He's
right?
from, yeah, like I want to say Ukraine, but I don't think that's right. I feel like
Is it one of the Scandinavian
uh,
countries?
hold on, I can't. I gotta go back in time. A couple of years here. Um, go. Why don't you know this, Isaiah?
Yeah, I wish I could help you out on this one.
Why can't you help me out on this one? Oh my goodness gracious, where
It's not my
I'm losing.
story.
It's not your story. It's my story. I should have known. Oh, come
Maybe
on.
we don't have time
Give,
for a story
maybe we don't.
anymore.
We're just running out of time. The time is gone. Time is time is dead. Oh my goodness. Oh my gosh. We're all the hold on.
Well, while you're looking at that, looking up for that, because I do like good stories. Just a quick update: the Anchorage Wolverines are on the road this weekend and next weekend, and they are going to the Minnesota Wilderness, and they need some points right
All
now.
right.
Wisconsin Wendigo are 63, Anchorage has 56, and Fairbanks has 56. So not a lot of breathing room. So you need a big weekend against the Minnesota Wilderness. So definitely go to Alaska or AnchorageWolverines.com and you can watch those games as well.
All right.
All
That's
right.
important, but my story is more important.
No, it
So,
is. It
no,
is.
just kidding. I'm kidding.
I'll
Uh,
I'm,
he,
I'll make sure to tell
he's
Nick that.
Augie Pantovic. He's from Kovan, Serbia. All right. Serbia.
Serbia.
So he's, for whatever reason, Rusty, I swear, there's probably 2 or 3 times in his career since they made this road trip where they've encountered some weird thing at the border, right? Something happens, like, got to check everybody's passport, got to whatever. For whatever reason, Augie Pantovic can't get in.
Oh,
Like, they legit denied him. No, you can't come into Canada. Like, for whatever reason. And I'm like,
it's
whoa,
Canada.
whoa, whoa. Like, he's the team's leading scorer. The team's leading scorer, and they're trying to cross the border into Canada and said, yep, you can't come. Like, whoo, I'm like,
Simon
this is
Fraser
like,
paid off
I'm
some
like,
custom
I'm like,
officials.
I'm like, what? This is just wild. Anyway, so you never know what happens. That's why I think it's one of the tougher road trips, just from that standpoint of Western Washington's always a tough team to begin with.
They are.
And then, just the travel logistics of getting into, Simon Fraser can be a little bit challenging at times. And then when you lose your team's leading scorer, it makes it even more challenging.
It does make it difficult.
So
Yeah.
anyway, just random stories. There you go. There's another fireside chat
Fireside chats.
that we
Those are
can
good.
have.
We're
Anyway.
gonna have to have a story time. Got some crazy stories from March Madness, and
Oh, dude. Yeah, I'm
oh
sure.
man,
I'm sure.
it's
So,
wild
uh,
stuff.
I want to make note before we get out of here, though, as well. UAA, UAF Governor's Cup from last week. The Nanooks retaining the Governor's Cup for the 14th year in a row. Seawolves have not won the Governor's Cup, I believe, since '09. Last time that the Seawolves have won the Alaska Airlines Governor's Cup. Now, it was a valiant effort in the last game by UAA. They were down 3-1 in the third period, but they scored two unanswered goals to tie it up to at least get it into overtime and into a shootout. Seawolves lost in that shootout, so UAF able to retain the Governor's Cup yet again. So congratulations to the Nanooks. Just might as well get a permanent home for the trophy right now. I guess I don't know
Yeah,
at that point. So that's tough, man. And this is I know that UAA has struggled in hockey over the last few years since they brought it back, right? Just in terms of win-loss record. So like the Governor's Cup series has become like a Super Bowl, I feel like. Like I feel like that's like this is our thing. Like
that's it.
we have a chance to end a drought that you know we haven't hoisted the cup since 2009, right? And you come that close to getting it back, and yoink, goodbye, stays in
Yeah,
Fairbanks.
that's
So
that is rough.
it's tough.
That is
It's
rough.
rough, but uh, shout out to the Nanooks though for retaining the cup yet again. So until next year, until next year.
Start it all over again.
Start it all over again. That's it. Anything else that we want to add prior to
No,
signing
just
it off here?
come out to D1 hockey. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yep.
I do. I think those first round matchups are really intriguing and boast for a really fun semifinals, no matter really what happens. So very exciting.
It's always a good time. That is for
It
sure.
really is.
The atmosphere is one of the best atmospheres for a state championship. That's for sure. It's going to be jam-packed Menard Sports Complex this weekend. Again, games Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Get your tickets online, ASAA365.com. You can get all the links there. Buy your tickets in advance prior to even coming
Yeah.
out to the Menard Sports Complex if you like. All right. Well, let's go do it for this edition of the Alaska Sports Talk podcast. Be sure you like, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Also, get caught up on our YouTube page as well. Go to youtube.com, search Alaska Sports Talk, and you find all the clips from previous episodes and also some other Coaches Show clips from
Yeah.
our Rusty Osborne and Ryan McCarthy interviews as well. So until next week, for Isaiah Freeman, I'm Keaton Homer signing off. We'll see you at the hockey rink this weekend.